Hey y'all, this is Mrs. Ross with Mrs. Ross Does Math. Today is lesson 26. This is our third to last lesson, not only of this unit, but also this book that we happen to be in. So if you've been joining us along the way, we are getting very close to the end, and we are just about there, okay? So once again, this is lesson 26. Our topic for today is simplifying expressions. And our essential question, or the question you should be able to answer by the end of this lesson, is how can I simplify expressions using the distributive property and combining like terms? Now, as I go through this, please feel free to stop. Please feel free to pause. Please do whatever you may need to be able to take your notes and follow along. Here we go. One of the first things that we are going to start out with today is some vocab. And that vocabulary is going to be critical to our lesson because you're going to be combining different things together. And I want to make sure that you have a solid background of understanding. Our first vocab word is a constant. C-O-N-S-T-A-N-T. A constant is numbers that do not have a variable. So here, if I have 3 plus x, 3 is the constant in this expression. So again, our constant is just that single number, doesn't have anything with it. Our next vocab word is what's called a coefficient. Now a coefficient is, or a C-O-E-F-F-I-C-I-E-N-T. A coefficient is a number in front of a variable. So here in my word coefficient, sorry, just wanted to fix that. My example is 4x. Now 4x is called a term. Okay, they're combined together. The x, as we all know, is our variable, the loneliest variable. However, the 4 in front of it, that is going to be our coefficient. Okay, so when it's directly connected to a variable, it's a coefficient. When it's by itself, it's a constant. So constant is by itself, coefficient, it's dependent. Okay. Now our last, or second to last vocab term, sorry about that, is like terms. L-I-K-E-T-E-R-M-S. Like terms are terms that contain the same variable. So if we have the expression 2x plus 3x plus 4y, the x's are my like terms because they both have an x with them. This would be like if you're going to the store and you've got apples and oranges and you're shopping for them. You can't put the apples and oranges in the same bag. They have to have their own bag. But if you were to have 2 apples of one and you decide later on to get 2 more apples, instead of putting them in 2 separate bags, you could just put them in the same bag, okay? Now our very last term today is what's called simplifying an expression. And simplifying an expression is a process where we take an expression that has no parentheses and we have combined every single type of like term. So what I mean by that here is if I were to have my x's, I would combine my x's together. So I've got my 3x there, and I've got a negative 8x here. And the reason why I say it's a negative 8x is because if I cross everything out here, we get minus 8x, or negative 8x. So I'd have 3x minus 8x. Then I'd look at my y's. Now my y's, I have a positive 6y, and again it's positive because if I cover that up, I'm left with just a positive. And then I have a positive 7y over here. So I'm going to write those down. Excuse me. And now I have my last set. I just have the numbers. And the numbers here happen to be a positive 2 and a negative 1. So I'm going to look at combining those together now. Now, when I go through the process of actually figuring out what 3x minus 8x is, what 6y plus 7y is, and what 2 minus 1 is, and I come up with negative 5x plus 13y minus 1, I have just gone through and simplified my expression because we can't take it anywhere else. This would end up being our final answer. All right. Now, what we're going to move into next are some practice problems. So if you need to pause this video at this point to go back through, watch any of this, please feel free to do that. Here we go. So our first set of practice problems looks like this. We are going to begin by combining our like terms together. Now, one of the easiest ways that I can suggest to you to do this is by getting out a couple of different colors of highlighters. So like I showed you earlier, I've got a yellow, I've got an orange, and I got a pink. So when I go through and I'm trying to figure out what do I combine with what, we can use the colors to help us. Now, if you don't have any colors available, you could also use different shapes, and I'm actually going to do that on this first problem. So here I've got 9y plus 12 plus 3 minus 12y. I'm going to begin by circling the things that have a variable, and in this case my y's do. So I'm going to put a circle around my 9y, and I'm going to put a circle around my negative 12y. And I am going to write that down. So I'm going to go 9y minus 12y. Next, I'm going to use squares on just my constants. And remember, those constants are just solo numbers. So I'm going to put a square around the 12, and I'm going to put a square around the 3. And I'm going to write 12 plus 3. Now, we actually need to go through and solve it. So here, 9 minus 12 would be negative 3. So I'm going to write minus 3, and then we add the y onto it. And then I have 12 plus 3 over here, which would be 15. I'm going to go plus 15. This would be our final answer. Negative 3y plus 15, because we can't take it any further. This is where we have to stop. All right, next up. Now, maybe you're not a circle and square type of person. Maybe you're a straight line, squiggly line kind of person, and that's what I'm going to do on this next one. All right, so here we go. So for number 2, it says negative 3a minus 2h plus 4h plus 3a. Okay, so I've got my a's, and I'm going to start out with a's just because it's the first letter of the alphabet. Now I'm going to use the squiggly line under my negative 3a, and I'm going to write that down. And I'm going to do a squiggly line under my negative 3a, or sorry, my positive 3a, because that's also got an a on it. And I'm going to write that down. Now, with my h's, I have negative 2h. I'm just going to use a straight line underneath that. So negative 2h. And then I've got my positive 4h. Okay. So if you're not a fan of the circles and squares and you don't have any colors, you could use straight lines, squiggly lines. I'll leave that up to you. So now I've got negative 3a plus 3a. Well, negative 3 plus 3 would give us 0. So we're going to write 0a. And then I've got negative 2 plus 4. That's going to give me 2. So I'm going to go plus 2h. Now here's the thing with variables. We can't have a 0 with our variable. So my 0a, that's just going to disappear. And my final answer is just going to be 2h. So anytime you get a 0 with a variable, your 0 is your coefficient, it can just disappear. It can go away. We don't want to leave it. There we go. All right, now in our final practice problem today, I've thrown a little bit of a curveball at you, but nothing I know you can't handle. And that is this here, 11 plus 3 in parentheses, x minus 4, and then we've got a minus 2x on the end. Now I gave you a little hint right over here, and it says get rid of the parentheses first. So let's do that. We're going to have to use our distributive property to solve it. And that means we're going to go 3 times x, which would be 3x, and 3 times negative 4, which would be negative 12. And now I'm going to bring down the minus 2x. I'm going to bring down the 11 and the plus sign. Now I'm going to combine. And this is where I'm actually going to go ahead and use my highlighters here. So I'm going to do my solo numbers as yellow, my constants. I'm going to do those as yellow, and I'm going to write them down. So now I'm going to go 11 minus 12. And then I'm going to use my pink highlighter for my x's. So 3x, which is positive, and negative 2x right there. I'm going to write those down. Now, I'm just going to solve this. So I'm going to go negative 11 minus 12, which would be negative 1. And I'm going to go 3x minus 2x, which is just give me 1x. So negative 1 plus x would be my final answer. Now, if you wanted to flip-flop it and put that x first, you could do that. And that would look like x plus negative 1. Or, even better, x minus 1. All right, now this is it for today. So if you have any questions at all, please reach out to me and let me know. If you need some extra help in understanding this, please send me an email. I am here to help. Now let's get started with that assignment. Thank you so very much for watching. This has been Mrs. Ross Does Math.